The doctor that day said, if you weren't Black, I would say you had cystic fibrosis. Can you imagine going 54 years suffering? When we got the diagnosis of cystic fibrosis, everything made sense. Why it took 54 years, we'd never truly know. We know a lot of it was a lot of stereotypes, unconscious bias, maybe some racism. So we see it as a blessing to endure the most horrific pain and suffering to now be a light of hope for others.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Silvas. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Amy Silvas. I am the founder and principal of Silvas Capital. And wow, I'm trying not to get emotional. I am so excited to invite my amazing friends today on this podcast, Michele and Terry Wright. They are dear friends of mine, people I look up to tremendously, and I can't wait for you to hear their story and be encouraged, inspired, and really just know that there are some great people like this that exist in the world. Michele and Terry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Amy, the pleasure is ours.
Well, I don't think I can possibly do you all justice with an intro. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll continue to tell your story throughout the podcast, but give us a quick little intro.
Okay. First of all, hello. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Amy. Your introduction was just awesome, and you're too kind. I'm kind of wondering who's these people you're talking about, but thank you. Thank you. Always been sweet and kind and loving. You're a great person. My name is Terry Wright. I live here in Arkansas, actually in North Little Rock, Arkansas. I have cystic fibrosis. I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at the age of 54, presently 62 years of age right now. I've been living with this CF all my life, but being diagnosed is just kind of really didn't change my life. Of course, this is my beautiful wife over here, Michele.
Don't you forget that.
I never forget that. I tell you what, if she wasn't on my side and really being with me, I probably would be having this conversation now, to be honest with you. She really has advocated for me throughout this whole journey of this cystic fibrosis, this monster that just really wasn't familiar with, didn't know how to fight it. And so anyway, so that's part of my life. Also, I'm very active. I love my gardening, getting in there, growing my plants, my flowers, my herbs and stuff. I do like a lot of cardiovascular exercises, like using the seated elliptical machine, the cross trainer. Find that to really help me out tremendously, because there are sometimes, my lung function will get down pretty low, and I find myself I need to get back going again and start taking care of myself. And I'm the type of cystic fibrosis person that believe I should be trying to incorporate some eating along with some physical activity to be able to maintain one's mental and physical stamina as well and stuff like that. But that's so much about me. I'm going to let my wife introduce herself. And thank you once again for having us, Amy.
I was getting nervous, Amy. It wasn't going to be enough time now.
Get out of here. We got lots of time. Everyone's excited to hear from you all. So yeah, let's just do it. Yeah.
So I am the other better half of Terry, and we met November the 1st, 1999. I always tell people he fell in love with me at first sight.
Absolutely.
So,
we're great.
I didn't rush things. It was day 3 and day 4 for me. But what's interesting, I always say that health equity must be in my blood, because I was actually born at the same hospital they did the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. And that has changed the whole course of how clinical trials are ethically done today. So the Tuskegee is my roots, but Arkansas is my home. And I met Terry. We just connected right away. And what was interesting, at that time, I transitioned from engineering to pharmaceutical and biotechnology sales. And so I was actually selling a high power quinolone antibiotic for pneumonia during that time. So when Terry told me, and this was early 2000, his chest hurts, I said, well, you got to go to the walk-in clinic because it sounds like pneumonia to me. And I know, Amy, pneumonia is nothing to play with. And that's where our story kind of started, because the doctor that day said, if you were Black, I would say you had cystic fibrosis. And that was our introduction to cystic fibrosis. But it would take another 17 years before we hear the word cystic fibrosis again.
Well, we're going to get into this story, which is so moving. And both of you have just, have not just helped yourselves, obviously, on this journey, but have given so much to the greater CF community and even just the health community worldwide. But I want to give our listeners some context, because most know that I live with cystic fibrosis. But as a person of European descent, when I presented in 1981 to my doctors of losing weight and coughing, they didn't think twice, but to do what was back then the gold standard of testing, which is called the sweat chloride test. So I'm not going to get too much into it, but back in the day, at least when I was very young, this was thought to be a disease, a genetic disease exclusively of Northern European descent. And it's so important to bring that up because, and you mentioned health equity, which everyone should be on board with, be aware of, be conscientious of. And living was, I was supposed to be around 9 years old. That was my life expectancy. CF is a real heavy, deadly disease. So even with the right treatment, so the fact that Terry and Michele, I know you were along this journey with him, you both had to suffer so much without treatment, obviously raises or maybe, I don't know, I will put words in your mouth, but at best ignorance, right? They're the very best ignorance, maybe something more nefarious, is just heartbreaking. Can you share a little bit more about that journey if you feel comfortable? I'd love for our listeners to hear.
Absolutely. It was not an easy journey. You almost had to be there. And I'm glad I was a part of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly was a person who would eat, who would drink, and have to bring up their food. That quality of life was impacted because they had to always go to the restroom, in constant, unbearable pain. And he can get into that more. He always said as a child, sometimes he even wanted to die because the pain was so intense. I do want to back up a second because I think that's an important fact. Terry did spend significant time at the local children's hospital. But even though he had the classic signs of cystic fibrosis, he was told it was an ulcer, bad stomach, asthma, everything but cystic fibrosis, this disease we would later identify. But even during our tenure of being together, his pancreas were deemed the result of drinking. So he was asked, are you an alcoholic? So it was other things like that that really bear heavy on us, like the burden was ours to carry. I mean, he had his gallbladder removed, all types of surgeries, 8-hour pancreatic ojejunostomy, all of these things, even to end up learning about something as simple as pancreas enzymes that could make a difference. But we never gave up, and I wasn't going to give up for him. And our journey continues not only for us, but especially for others.
Right. Also, even in Growing up with all that severe pain that was coming from my abdominal, I can just remember, just like yesterday, like day, just like right now, just the severe pain. I never felt any type of pain like that in my life. And to wake up in this pain, to go to sleep in this pain, hoping that I'm not going to wake up, because I know if I wake up, I'm going to be in pain because I'm going to sleep in pain. So the most beautiful thing for me is to just lay down and try to go to sleep. Then at the same time, my stomach would just kind of swell up and protrude, and I'm vomiting all my bowels, everything's coming out, and I don't know what's wrong with me. It just seemed like, okay, well, let me try this to eat. When you're younger, your mom trying to comfort you, well, just give you a little soup or a little something to coat your stomach. Then it flares up even more so. If I try to take any medication or eat anything, if I drink water, just whatever, would just irritate my stomach. It was just a terrible feeling, something that I wouldn't wish upon anyone growing up, especially a child. It was very traumatizing to me growing up, because I knew I was different, and I'm coming from a family of 9 siblings and all, and I'm the only one that stayed sick all the time. But at the same time, it was kind of ironic. I was sick all the time, but yet I was the one that really was trying to stay healthy and exercise and be active, trying to run, playing sports and stuff like that. But at the same time, I used to just kind of suffer. And just as seasons change, this CF would change along with the seasons. So it would just kind of jump around in my body. It attacked my GI system. Then it's like, okay, I'm going to move around and mess with your lungs now. So when you out practice football, you can't breathe. You try to run a wind sprint. I'm the only one on the side and on my knees, just wondering why come I couldn't breathe. Well, what was so funny about the breathing part, my mom, my parents, they knew about the stomach part. I kind of kept the breathing part away, from them, because I was at school at that time, practicing and doing those things. My parents didn't know I had some really bad breathing problems, but they knew I had these really bad digestive problems and stuff. They knew that for sure. But I just kind of kept the other part away from them, but it just started wreaking havoc, moving around. Right now, I can tell you where it's at now. It's all in my sinuses now. So all this thick mucus that will form in my lung is coming out of my head now and my sinus and stuff. So I can see myself when I lie down at night, it just drains on down in my lungs and reinfect me. But it's been a struggle dealing with this cystic fibrosis, because I can even remember many times I would work out and run. Back then, I was a big runner, 5K races, 10K races. Did quite a few bike rides. We call them century rides.
100 miles.
Century rides. But I would be the one on the side, on the course, sweating out. And once I start sweating, I can't stop sweating. So I'm sweating all these big grains of salt all on my skin. It just dried up like somebody took a salt shaker and just shook all this salt on me. And I wasn't able to hold my fluids because that level of the chloride, I don't have that balance. To turn that gene off. So I would catch myself dehydrating all the time. And one time, I can tell you this, on a bike ride, I dehydrated so bad, I went into kidney failure. So I had to spend a couple of weeks in the hospital of the simple fact. And then I have a real bad problem of cramping all the time because I can't hold those electrolytes. So the CF just comes with so many different manifestations of stuff. It's just a terrible disease. And I'm a big gardener. Sometimes I got to be careful of how I deal with the compost. all the steam and stuff coming up. I have to mask up or it'll get to me.
Like it did last year.
Like it did last year.
When I was in the hospital for
Right. Got a fungus in my lung last year, composted. Even though I had a mask on, but it still kind of made its way through there and stayed sick for a long time. But it's been a journey. It's still a journey. That's something you just have to make up your mind. You're living with it and try to do the best you can do to maintain your health and be able to identify things that would be triggers to you to cause stuff to flare up. And I truly feel like there's certain stuff that I can do will cause myself to flare up, So I got to make sure I try to stay hydrated, plenty of water, take my treatments, be very active and always incorporate some type of cardiovascular exercise, aerobic type of exercises so I can kind of build my lung function.
Actually, his best aerobic exercise is cooking for me.
There we go.
That's right.
Cheers to that. I love that. What's the best dish he cooks?
Oh, wow.
I like everything.
I like everything. But my all-time favorite is when he does Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Go out the way on that one.
He goes all the way out. Everything else is the cake, but Thanksgiving is the icing on the cake.
Oh.
I mean, he holds nothing back.
We go old school.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we're in Arkansas, so we go real Southern with it.
Oh, I'm jealous.
But to Terry's point, and to your point, you talked about during the time of your diagnosis, looking at a prognosis of 9 years. Can you imagine going 54 years suffering? And what's interesting, he mentioned the salt all over his body. When you look back at the signs and symptoms, he was a walking billboard. He was the poster child, but people could not look past race and ethnicity.
Yeah. And what was so funny about a lot of my classmates, especially in junior high, elementary, primary school, they all remember me as that boy that was sick all the time. I didn't remember myself like that, but they remember me. I had a cold, I had a sniffer and stuff like that. And I guess it wasn't normal to them, but that's their take on me, because every now and then I run across a classmate or something like that, and they would remember me like that, but I didn't remember myself like that, but they did though.
Yeah.
Back in the day, yeah, for sure.
It really speaks to actually what I was going to talk about next is despite this unspeakable suffering, Terry, that you had to go through just to get the bare minimum treatment to make you feel not in pain every day, and hoping to sleep so it would go away. Both of you still have such a smile on your face, an upbeat attitude. Truly, it gives me goosebumps as I say it. Most people would be, and rightfully so, furious with the medical system, feel like most of their life had been robbed. Yet here you are, smiling, and I've had the blessing to know you all for probably a better part of a decade or so. Not only are you spreading joy and are you out there speaking, but you're looking to tackle this and make sure others don't go through. I can't get rid of these goosebumps as I say this. You all are making sure others don't endure that. I'm impressed beyond words. I'd love for both of you, if you can, to articulate what it takes to overcome what you've had and still have the mind to serve others and help others when you ended up on the short end of the stick. Do you mind elaborating on that, please?
Well, I can just tell you the first step is your attitude and just realize no one done anything to you. Whatever you dealt with, just take it, because the ultimate is to go and do something good for others. When you out focus in on doing something nice and good, you get your mind off of yourself. Your woe is me and somebody mistreated me. Just go out and help someone else, because we're all here. So we all have gifts and stuff. So you just find your gifts and go out and go give it to someone else and just make them happy. Just make them happy.
Absolutely. And it really comes down to empathy. When we got the diagnosis of cystic fibrosis, it was very well welcome because now we had answers and everything made sense. You know, why it took 54 years, we probably would never truly know. We know a lot of it, you know, going back to if you weren't Black, was a lot of stereotypes, unconscious bias, maybe some racism, a little of everything together. But the beauty of it, if it were not for Terry's suffering and our journey, we wouldn't be in a position we are today to help other people live and thrive. So whereas some people would see it as a curse, we see it as a blessing to endure the most horrific of pain and suffering to now be a light of hope for others that may be going through the same thing. And that's one of the reasons we did start the National Organization of African Americans with Cystic Fibrosis, because we wanted to take something that was devastating, heartbreaking, like you say, traumatic, and make it a something beautiful, a beautiful light to someone else. Because keep in mind, Terry was even in the hospital on our honeymoon. He always suffered. And when you're in partnership with someone, they're not the only one suffering. A lot of times you don't talk about, you know, we as a society don't talk about the caregiver as much, but we carry just as much burden. We may not carry the physical pain, but there is a burden that we carry as well. And to see him go through that was devastating for me as well. Because I too have a rare disease. I never talk about it. It's easier for me to tell his business than tell mine. So
fair enough. You know, as I've aged, I don't want to derail this too much, but, you know, my parents are getting older and I'm seeing them have health challenges. And to stack on what you're saying, I would say, and I don't want to speak for anyone else, it's almost harder for someone I love to battle an illness than it is for, I would rather whatever my parents have going on, I'd rather it be me. So it really resonates with me, Michele, when you're saying, hey, it's both of us together because, woo, seeing someone you love suffer, I mean, it is just
not easy.
Unbearable.
It's unbearable.
And one of my biggest nightmares to have my stomach start hurting because it hurt so much when I was younger, for it just to start to hurt. Then I'd be questioning myself, okay, is it
back?
Is it rolling back again?
Yeah.
Because that was such a pain. I can't really describe that pain other than the best way I can describe that pain. You know, every child growing up, you know, you wrestle, and for some reason, especially boys, somebody get kicked in the stomach. Okay. Now that's the best way I can describe that pain, being kicked in the stomach, and that first initial kick, it just stay with you. You wake up to it, you go to sleep to it. You wake up to go to sleep. It just never go away. The only time I was getting that relief from that when Mom take me to the children's hospital, and they would just kind of shoot me with Demerol and Finnegan. That was the choice of the drug back then. And
even with us being together, that was the
And you used to just leave big eggs all over your body, and the nurse, you have to kind of massage that egg down to all these pores and kind of get it into my system, because that's the only thing was giving me relief. And then the next morning, it's like, I'm back.
So
because
you were going to the hospital about once a week, the emergency room. And I was like, this is no way to live.
No.
You know, I don't even think his family knew the true extreme that he was going through. And that's why I was glad to find out about the pancreaticojejunostomy. It was an 8-hour surgery. He stayed in the hospital 4 weeks. But to come out and be able to drink a cup of water, to eat a slice of pot, it was definitely a game changer.
Wow. Just the basic things a lot of us take for granted, right? Just to zoom out a little bit, I think this conversation of health equity in the United States is something a lot of people are uncomfortable to talk about. It is hard as a society to admit to ourselves, hey, there are certain segments of society, whether it's income, whether it's race, whether it's ethnicity, that are not getting appropriate care. They're not getting the same level of care as maybe someone who looks like me. But you all, and I think this conversation is so important because this doesn't just apply to cystic fibrosis. I mean, you all have your story and you're making a difference in that area, but I think everyone can relate and should really dig into this concept of health equity in the United States. I'd love to hear about the organization you all started, what you're doing with it, the impact that it's made. I'm going to invite you to toot your own horn here because I want folks to know, no, really, because it's important that we know that this isn't just something that's out there and, oh gosh, we wish it was different. You all are making a difference. So I'd love to highlight that if you're comfortable sharing.
Oh, we are definitely comfortable sharing. And honestly, we didn't waste much time.
Okay.
I mean, we started NOAACF, again, the National Organization of African Americans with Cystic Fibrosis, within months of his diagnosis. And one of the reasons, too, that was interesting, Amy, we couldn't find any information as far as Blacks, African Americans with cystic fibrosis. And if there's a problem and no solution, you have to help create it. And that's why we started it. And look like we haven't let up since. I mean, literally, just today is Monday, Saturday, I was in Kansas at the Global Genes Health Equity Forum speaking. Why are people uncomfortable? Sometimes people are uncomfortable, maybe looking inward. I was born in the same hospital they did the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. And that experiment went on from 1932 to 1972. And the only reason it stopped, it got leaked to a New York writer, journalist. But sometimes to strive for anything equity, you have to be able to admit there's inequality. Yes. And a lot of people are not comfortable doing that. It's easy to pretend everything's okay. It's some people become complicit. It's easy to say we're not where we used to be. We're better. But take newborn screening. I always talk to Terry about, well, if they would have been newborn screening in 1962 when he was born, we're talking 62 years ago, would that have made a difference? It wouldn't have, because a lot of BIPOC people have rare mutations. Terry has 2. And there's inequality even in the, when it comes to CF variants and testing for different genes. You take Mississippi, the only CF variant they test for is the Delta F508. And so we still have a long ways to go, which is why we advocated for Terry Wright's law to make sure that all variants, all greater 2,000 variants are tested for, not just Delta F508. That's why we do our annual BioMerge conference, and that stands for Blacks, Indigenous, and other minority ethnicities with rare and genetic disease. That's why Terry wrote a book, 54 years late, a coloring book, so children and parents across all walks of life, races, and ethnicities can be inspired by his story. That is why we did a documentary called 54 Years Late, which has won over 70 accolades from film festivals. We're so proud of that. And that's why we created our screening tool, the Wright Cystic Fibrosis screening tool. And we did that in coordination with the wonderful, awesome, beautiful, phenomenal Dr. Jennifer Taylor-Kauser. So we have done our share part. Another thing that we are comfortable with and we love to do collaborating with the community, like with you, Amy, our history with you.
Right.
You name it, we've collaborated from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation to CFRI to the Barnell Foundation, ATS, Global Genes. I know I'm probably leaving someone out, but we have collaborated across the board, and it feels good to take a part of us to share and give it to someone else.
I love that. I love that. And I want to give our listeners just a little bit of, we're not going to get too nerdy on the science here, but just to give folks some context of how important NOAACF's work is. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic illness, but there are actually, I think, over 1,300 known mutations, gene mutations. And there's one mutation that about 70% of all people have called Delta F508, but there's a whole slew of rare ones. And the rare ones are more common in people who are not of European descent. So early treatment is imperative in CF. And so states have what's called newborn screening, but some states, like you mentioned, Mississippi, may only be testing for these more common mutations, which happen to only majority be in European, maybe descent folks, and may disproportionately not detect early BIPOC folks with cystic fibrosis. I have to admit, my eyes were open to this. We tested my husband to see if he's a carrier. He's a Latino gentleman. Lo and behold, has a rare mutation. If we didn't know better, to have all mutations tested for, and again, he's Latino, so the genes he has aren't as common. I mean, it was so eye-opening, and I'm embarrassed to say that's what it took for me to be aware of this. But you all are helping so many folks become more aware and open their eyes for what we should already be doing, right? Bare minimum. You all are advocating for the bare minimum, but what a blessing you are, because it doesn't just benefit the community. You're also helping other physicians, right, who are tasked with identifying, these symptoms that were so obviously missed with Terry.
Yes, and I'm proud to say also that our CF screening tool is in both English and Spanish. And we have a patient version and we have a provider version. And we don't charge. We make nothing off the screening tool. People can just go to our website, NOAACF.org, and download any version. So we want to do our part to give back. Sometimes it's a challenge because being a small organization, we don't get the support financially that a lot of larger mainstream organizations do. So we bootstrap a lot. We self-fund a lot, but we do what we can to give back. And that way, his suffering, our suffering, our journey is not in vain.
Absolutely.
Right. And we will definitely include that link for folks to go and support you all, which I encourage. I encourage everyone who believes in health equity, who wants to do their part. This is an amazing organization to make sure to support. Oh, of course. We'll talk about it at the end too. But I do want to hear about what abundance means to you all. I mean, obviously, you've created this great organization. You have done the best with the awful cards that have been dealt and the circumstances. But I'd love to just hear from you both, whether it's gardening or the amazing advocacy work you do, Michele, or, whatever it is. What does abundance mean to you all?
To me, abundance means to me, it's enough. It's enough. It's enough to share. It's enough to make awareness of, especially if you've been blessed to have the opportunity to receive some healing in some capacity. Abundance would mean you go out and just share that and just keep building and making disciples. Just grow it, grow it, fill it up.
Abundance to me, just like he said, is to have all that's needed, not just for yourself, but for others, and not just for today, but for generations to come. So if you have enough just for you, that's not abundance, that's self-preservation. And we're about giving and giving everything we can. Sometimes giving what we don't have. But at the end of the day, abundance is hearing from that person that say, I would not be here today if it were not for your advocacy. I would not be here today if it were not for your screening tool. That's exceeding abundance above anything we can ask or think.
That's right.
So powerful. I created this podcast, as I may have told you all, I talked to a bunch of, investors in my work that I do in real estate who've been chasing, I'm going to boldly say this lie that American culture has taught people that money is going to bring you happiness. If you have money as your North Star, all right, you just keep chasing that. And I talked to these folks who've said, I've been lied to. I've got a bunch of money and I don't feel abundant. I don't feel happy. It's really the genesis of this. So for those that are listening, maybe something, awful has happened to them, or maybe their life is okay, but they were chasing the wrong dream and now they want more abundance in their life. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to emulate you all or just have more overflow in their life?
My advice I would give, just kind of get out of yourself and don't so much look out what you can get out of life. It's what you can put in life, how you can go and just do something good for someone. Go find an elderly person, be a blessing to them, get into their life and make them happy. Just make them happy, make people happy. Go and serve others. And it's just going to come to you. And it's just going to draw itself to you. Just go out and serve others. We're so much into what we can get out of it. It's what about what you can put into it. You have to put some in, put good stuff, speak good things into people's lives. Be very positive. Have a lot of good energy. Be happy for people. Celebrate people.
We say I believe true abundance starts inside. Peace, love, joy, happiness, patience, long suffering, gentleness, the fruit of the spirit. It's a true abundance to give of yourself to someone. And, keep in mind, it's not always an easy journey. Like I say, sometimes you don't have the resources, but to give what you do, to be entrusted with what has been given to us, this journey, this story, this testimony, and use it for the betterment of others. If that doesn't bring abundance to the heart, the mind, the soul, what can? And that involves empathy, sympathy, love, kindness, gentleness. Sometimes we all can just smile. Sometimes just smiling at a person can make a difference. Sometimes a hug. We don't know what people are going through. Some people may be on the edge of giving up. So I would say to anyone listening, when I go into a restaurant and there is something that is not on that menu, it is no longer an option for me to order. Take giving up off the menu. Therefore, giving up and quitting is not an option. The journey may not always be easy, but it will very much be worth it. Don't quit. Stay inspired. And even if you're at your lowest point, go and invest in the lives of others, and that will help you to rebound and get back to a better place.
That's right.
Amazing. Thank you both so much for sharing your story. I know reliving this trauma over and over again is something you all still are willing to do in hopes to help others, encourage others. I wish there were more Michele and Terry Wrights in this world. Y'all know, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I would love to be just a third as amazing as both of you are. Thank you again for taking the time. And folks, really encourage you to support the organization. We're going to put the link in the chat. Health equity is imperative for all of us. And obviously we're very invested in our cystic fibrosis community. But you can see why. Look at these amazing folks that I get the privilege of calling friends, and we want more people to have great health and be able to utilize their gifts in this world. like Michele and Terry have. Thank you both so much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. We love you.
We love you. You are a dear friend, and thank you for all that you are and do. And your work is not in vain either.
That's right.
Be pushing forward. The best is yet to come.
We'll call you friend.
Thank you both. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Silvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.